Cleary Presents, a unique look at Northwest Arkansas with music, interviews, drama, and personalities. And now, here's Mike.
Hello and welcome to Mike Cleary Presents. On previous shows, we've talked about writing topics like overcoming writer's block, how to get writing and keep writing and avoid those obstacles that can inhibit your creative process. I've also talked about the Aristotle story formula. Aristotle created this formula centuries ago, and yet it's still used today in books, movies, and in television programs. Today's topic is going to be writing a mystery. Everybody likes a good mystery. And whether you're thinking about writing the next great mystery novel, if you want to write a screenplay, host a mystery dinner, if you want to contribute a story to like Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, or just maybe have a good yarn to tell the kids at night or sitting around a campfire. Today's program will be giving you all the tools and tips you need to write a great and challenging mystery. Why a mystery? Well, people are naturally curious. They want to know what happened and why. You can have evidence of this is when you're driving through a traffic accident, everybody slows down and looks out to see what happened. Everybody wants to know the answer to the question, what happened? People love to solve puzzles. They love mystery programs because they want to solve the puzzle of the show, and they want to be the first to come to the conclusion before the person solves the mystery. You may ask, why are you telling me about writing a mystery? What are your credentials? I mentioned in previous shows that I have written more than 60 published novels. I've completed the National Writing Contest 2 years in a row. I've had a number of dinner theater plays that have performed in local restaurants, clubs, and also on the stage in Bella Vista. So I know a little bit about writing a mystery, and that's why I want to pass on to you the tools and tips to write a great story. First of all, what is a mystery? A mystery is answering the question, who did this and why? Whether you have a crime to solve, or maybe you just came into a messy room. Who did this? It's a mystery, and people want to know the answers to the question, who done it? That's what most mysteries are called, are whodunits. There's also a type of mystery called the howdunit. This is kind of a rare one where, if you remember the old television program Columbo with Peter Falk, the audience knows who did it from the very beginning. They see the crime happen, and they want to solve the mystery for the detective. Find the clues. Find the way to apprehend the perpetrator. Gather the clues and answer the question, who done it? The first thing you need to do when we're creating a mystery is to develop the characters. Think about who is investigating this case and why. Is it a police investigator? Most television programs have a police officer or a police team that are investigating some kind of crime, whether it be a murder or a kidnapping or a theft of something. It's a team of investigators or an individual trying to solve the mystery. Maybe it's a family member. It's a person that feels that the case has not been solved, or the police have dropped the case and they feel it's their responsibility to bring the perpetrator to justice. It's a family member that goes out to solve the mystery. Or maybe it's just some nosy amateur investigator, some amateur sleuth. I like watching Hallmark mysteries because they're pretty silly in some of their amateur mystery solving. They have Murder, She Baked, where a girl that has a cookie store solves mysteries. And they have The Gourmet Detective, which is my favorite, and Aurora Teagarden, who is a librarian that feels like she has to solve this mystery. Try to figure out who is going to be involved in this case when you're writing a mystery. Who's going to be the one to find the clues and solve the question of who done it? Also, as they're solving this mystery, ask yourself, is it worth investigating? Could it just have been an accident? Is there any clues in the mystery that lead the investigator to believe that a crime really has been committed? And also make sure that it's worthwhile to investigate for the family members or the amateur sleuth, because sometimes the clues just aren't there. So develop the characters and figure out why there was a crime in the first place. Now, the backstory is what happened before the mystery. I had a friend of mine that started writing a story, and he wrote 2 chapters and he just sort of fizzled out. And he said, I got to a certain point and I just couldn't go beyond that. And I said, what you need to do is you need to develop the story before you write the story. And that's what backstory is. Backstory is creating the circumstances for the crime. No crime is happening for random. There's always a reason for what happened. So make a timeline of the events leading up to the actual mystery that needs to be solved. If there was a kidnapping, come up with a reason why this kidnapping occurred. If there was a murder, was it through jealousy? Was it through money? Was it through revenge? Come up for a reason why these crimes happen, and then you can add the clues that support the investigation. And make sure there's a plausible reason for it. You can't just throw out, oh, well, he felt like doing it. There was a movie by Alfred Hitchcock called Strangers on a Train, where 2 men committed murders, but they murdered for each other. Very difficult crime to solve, so come up with something that supports the crime and is believable and credible for the audience. Remember MOM. MOM stands for motive, opportunity, and means. Make sure that the person that committed the crime actually could do it. Did they have the means to do it? Did they have the opportunity? Were they across town when the crime happened? Did they have a good motive? Make sure that there's a strong motive and they actually have the tools necessary to commit this crime. Perhaps the motive was way back in their childhood. So you have to develop that in there. A lot of times, Agatha Christie won't reveal some of the clues until the very final end. Come up with some of the clues where the audience can just follow along and say, yeah, okay, I get it. This person years ago, or this opportunity arose and they were waiting for it all this time. The means, opportunity, and the motive. The means is another one. If some children were to commit a cyber crime, do they have the technology? Do they have the equipment to do it? Make sure that your means are credible and believable. Okay, now we are ready to create a mystery. You have a crime, whether it be an offense of murder, or a crime of maybe missing diary, or maybe it's a kidnapping. Come up with a crime and who is involved in it? Who are the suspects and who are the people that are investigating it? Is it a police case? Is it some teenage kids that want to solve the mystery of the mausoleum murders, like Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys? Come up with the crime, who's solving it, and the motive and opportunity and the means for this to actually happen. We're going to get right into the tools and tips about how to create this story after we break for some announcements. So don't go away. We're going to have more about writing a mystery with Mike Cleary Presents right after these messages.
We just did a break.
Welcome back to Mike Cleary Presents, and our topic is writing a mystery. Regardless if you want to write a full-length mystery novel, whether you want to have a mystery dinner in your home, or if you just want to write a story to entertain the kids. Writing a mystery involves certain components, and we're going to explore what those items are right away. First of all, mystery basics. Make sure your mystery is not too easy, because somebody can solve it in a minute, or not so hard and complex that it's impossible. Think of it as like a treasure hunt. Now, you probably had one of these before where you go and find a clue, and that clue leads you to the next clue, and then that clue leads you to the next clue. And that's how mysteries are, is that you don't get all the clues at once. Some clues lead you to other clues to follow. So when you're creating your mystery, don't give all the clues at once. Have the investigators follow a chain from one clue to the next. Now, you don't have to give out all the facts, and you don't have to leave out all the facts, because sometimes the audience will feel cheated if the investigator comes to a conclusion and they go, wait a minute, where did they come up with that idea? They may pick up a matchbook cover and say, oh, we need to go to the Stork Club. Where did they come up with that? Sometimes the clues are not supportive of the mystery. You can throw clues in there, but make sure that the investigator has reasonable purpose for following those clues. As I mentioned before, Agatha Christie sometimes does this, where they leaves the clues out until the end. Hercule Poirot, one of her heroes, will sometimes at the end read a telegram and say, ah, here's the answer. This is the person who murdered it. And I thought, that's not fair. You can't have solved the mystery if they hold back all the clues until the end. Make sure you provide them in a logical manner, and make sure you include all the clues so that the audience doesn't feel cheated if you leave some of them out. And give a good foundation for the decisions. Now, don't have the investigator go off on a tangent for no reason. If they see a crime, they automatically assume, gather the usual suspects, and go off thinking that maybe this person did it. Give reasonable clues and include the audience in these clues. Don't just have the investigator go off to solve the mystery and the audience say, wait a minute, what is his reasoning behind that? Make sure that the audience understands the significance of the clue and why the investigator thinks that clue is important. Have a good reason for that line of inquiry. Like I said, don't go off on any tangents. Too many side stories can confuse the audience. You might spend too much time on one side story. Like, for example, if there's a crime committed and the investigator goes off on some tangent about this person who had committed a crime, similar crime previously. If it has nothing to do with the story, don't waste too much time on it, because it'll just confuse the audience if you bring the investigator back and then go off on another line of inquiry. You can go off on side trips, but don't lose sight of the fact of you have an objective at the end. You also have to have a good reason to support this crime. They find a person laying on the floor. Was it an accident? Did they fall? Did they have a heart attack? Was they pushed? Make sure there's a good reason. Sometimes the crime is not immediately evident, and the police may not investigate it, and that's why the family member or the amateur sleuth steps in. But make sure there's enough reason to pursue the crime, and make sure that there's reasonable doubt in the investigation that'll support the reason why the crime wants to be investigated. Now, talk about going off on tangents. There's a term called red herrings. Now, this is clues that are inserted into the story that have nothing to do with the story. Let's say, for example, someone had broken into a building, and they go outside and they find a cigarette butt in the grass. Is that cigarette butt part of the story? Was it just somebody waiting for someone and they just were smoking a cigarette and threw the butt down? Does it have anything to do with the perpetrator? There's a broken window. Maybe the broken window happened a week before. Furniture. Furniture on the floor. If you move the furniture, it leaves an impression. Was it moved by the maid or the cleaning person? You can give side notes, red herrings, other ways of going off on a tangent, but don't make them so involved or so populated that it confuses the audience as to, like, why are you throwing in all these extra clues that have no meaning whatsoever? Make sure that this clue is a viable clue. Is it part of the investigation? If it's not part of the investigation, then give a reason why that clue is discounted. If it isn't part of the investigation, give a reason why it's significant. Red herrings can confuse the story so much that eventually the audience is just completely befuddled and say, I've lost track of who is doing what and why. So throw some extra side clues in there that don't pertain to the particular crime or the particular mystery at all, but don't make them so numerous that they tend to confuse the audience. I like writing mysteries for dinner theaters. And what I'll do is we'll have every person have a motive and every person have an opportunity to commit the crime. And Agatha Christie does the same thing. At the end of her shows, Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple gives the reason why each of these suspects had motive to commit the crime. So you can do that. You can include a motive and an opportunity for each person that is in your suspect list. And that'll cause a challenge for your audience to choose who is it that really committed this crime. Not everything is straightforward. Not all the clues point to the solution. But don't make it so that it's confusing to the audience. Make sure that if this person has a motive, make it a clear motive. If this person has an opportunity, make sure it's a reasonable opportunity and not just a stray clue. Another thing is people lie. A lot of times people will lie to the investigator, people will lie to each other, and so you have to feel out which clues are actual general clues, which ones are red herrings, which ones are false testimony. Okay, now you have all the clues to solve your mystery. You have all the tools and all the tips. Make sure that your crime is believable. If it's just a messy room, has the crime been committed, or is this person just a messy person? If there's a person that's injured on the floor, were they attacked? Did they fall? Was it an accident? Make sure that the crime that's being investigated is worthwhile, and that the solution is credible. You know, if you had a high-tech break-in of a bank, did they have the tools and equipment to do it? If a person is dressed as a ghost to scare someone, is it believable? Would anybody that was listening to the story actually believe a person dressed as a ghost was a ghost? If the politician or the business person was assassinated, is there a good reason for it? Make sure that your solution to the crime actually supports all the clues and evidence leading up to that crime, and that your means and motive and opportunity are reasonable and supportive. A lot of times when I watch some of these mystery programs, I just shake my head and go, that would never happen. They would never let that happen. This investigator would never follow that line of inquiry, or this investigator would never accept that bit of evidence. Make sure that it's believable and credible, and that all your evidence supports the conclusion. You have plausible elements and a plausible conclusion to your mystery. Now you're ready to create a mystery. Remember what I mentioned about character development. Make sure that you have credible characters as investigators, as suspects, and as victims. Also, make sure that you answer the who and why of this crime. Who had motive? Who had opportunity? Who had the means to commit this offense? The mom principle. Also, red herrings. Throw a few side notes in there every once in a while, just to add a little bit of intrigue to your story, so it's not so easy to follow. What happens usually with mysteries anyway is that it's never clean cut from beginning to end. There's always something that's clouding the issue. So throw a few red herrings in there. Throw a few extra suspects with motives in there, just in order to add a little bit more intrigue into the story. Everybody loves a mystery. Everybody loves to solve a puzzle. Everybody loves to have a story where you know the answer and you give them the clues, and it's up to them, their challenge, to solve the mystery and come to the conclusion that you were intending them to choose. Thank you so much for watching Mike Cleary Presents. And now I'm hopefully that you'll write your own mystery and come up with a fabulous, puzzling poser. Thank you for watching Bella Vista Community Television. And we'll see you next time right here on Mike Cleary Presents.